The four corners of the earth, we are preach God's word in various places. And from in the darkest night right to the daylight, we give praises. So we give praises. Now on everyday topics, well, you know we come for shine some light using godly principles. Yes, that's right. On the straight and the narrow path, that's where we go. Welcome to the DayeLight Show.
Welcome to the DayeLight Show. I'm your host, Crystal Daye, and I am so excited to be back for another amazing episode. Now, the conversation that we want to talk about today is sex. Why am I whispering? Because listen, we're talking to mostly church people, and you know that we're not supposed to be using words like that, right? But I have the most amazing guest in the house with us this week, and I just can't wait to, listen, I feel like I couldn't even sleep last night. It's weird because she's like my next mother, but anytime she speaks, the wisdom that flows from her, I'm just like always awed. So I want to welcome, as we have this conversation, what's the big deal about sex? Like, what is it really? I don't know. Let's see. So I want to welcome Reverend Dr. Carla Dunbar in the house today here on the DayeLight Show. Welcome, Doctor.
It's so awesome being here, and I'm just thinking the big deal about sex is a really big deal. But yeah, I'm excited too because I'm always excited to inform and educate us as in Christendom, mainly because that's what this is about, right? Inform and educate us because there's such a lack of knowledge in Christendom concerning sex. It's such a controversial topic, and I'm like, if it was not to be talked about, why would God dedicate so much time to it? Why should we be ashamed to talk about something that God was not ashamed to create? So it's counterproductive for the God who invented the idea, gave it to us as Christians to not talk about it. And so we have come to a place where we have allowed the church to be suffering from a lack of knowledge, as the Lord spoke through his prophet Hosea, because we have failed to teach sex and its proper place, because there's a place for it. But if we don't teach it, they won't get it. That is where we have failed as a church.
Wow. So basically she's saying sex is a big deal, right? Yes. And here on the DayeLight Show, remember, our vision is to ensure that we're shining light on everyday topics using godly principles. So with that being said, I want to just kind of ask you to tell us a little bit about you. Yes, let our listeners, we have listeners all over the world. Welcome again to our show. And I want you to tell them a little bit about you. Like, what makes you this sex specialist that you can have this conversation with us, But just tell us a little bit about you, Dr. Dunbar.
I think it will be more what makes me the kind of person who speaks unashamedly or unabashedly, very candidly about sex, and that is because I have a proper understanding. You see, perspective is important. Where you stand determines what you see, right? And so God has called me and he has equipped me. He would not call you and not equip you. He has called me to be able to talk about it. So I have a special gifting. The grace of God is upon me to do this. And so I am not ashamed to talk about it because I speak about it in its proper context. I understand that Playboy, Cartel, Lady Saw in her former life, or even Carla, did not invent the idea of sex. I am cognizant that El Elohim, El Elyon, Adonai, he is the one who came up with the concept. And there must be a scope for him to be glorified from anything that he creates. We have the ability to distort it, but he must be glorified. So who am I? I am Carla Dunbar. That is what is on my birth certificate. I am an ordained bishop of Carla Dunbar Ministries International and Life Temple Ministry International. These are subsidiaries. I am a marriage and family and sex therapist. Yes, I have a PhD in the matter of marriage and family. I'm a certified professional life coach. I'm a licensed sex therapist. And my husband and I, we celebrate, and it is the most important qualification. My husband and I are celebrating 45 years together this coming August. We have been living together for 45 years now. We have been married for 30 years. And we have 4 beautiful children and 10 grandchildren. We love each other even after 45 years, and I think that is that's my biggest qualification, to be able to speak to the matter of sex.
Okay. Thank you. So here's where I want to go. Because like you said, the society would have started what sex
They
could be.
started it.
So tell us in your, I guess, biblically, what is sex? Some people would say, it's just the action itself. Some people say, you can start from the emotional aspect of it. So tell us in your words, or not necessarily in your words, but based on the revelation that God has given you about, what sex is, why is sex so supposedly tabooed, especially in the church?
There is a theology of sex, actually. The theology of sex is that it is very good. When God made the animals, when he separated water from, dry land, when he separated night from day, when he did all of this all of it, he said it was good. When he created us, however, man and woman, he said it was very good. Right? So the theology of sex is that sex is very good on the premise of God who created us as sensual, sexual, social human beings. He said it was very good. Who are we to say what God has created is not good when he is the manufacturer and he says the product itself is good? You understand what I'm saying? So that is the conceptualization. That's the theology, right? Psalm 139, 13 and 14, David said, I will praise you because I, with my sexuality, my sensuality, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And that tells us that God put thought, lots of thought, into designing the product human. And so it ought not to be taken lightly. And he designed us with our individual sexuality. Sex, if defined by the Bible, is really a gender. Sexual intercourse is the coitus union between a husband and a wife, right? People will say between a man and a woman. Yes, it's a man and a woman, as in a male and a female, right? But it ought not to be done outside of the context of marriage. Wow. So I said it is a coitus union between the husband and wife, which should be enjoyed to its fullest extent, which is why I wrote about it, which is why I speak about it, which is why I teach about it, because it must be explored within the context and confines of marriage. So it's a beautiful expression of love. It flows out of love, or should flow out of love. It should also flow out of intimacy, which is the oneness union that the husband and wife share together. So sex is a very, very deliciously good thing.
But here's where I want to go, Dr. Dunbar, because the truth is, especially in the Caribbean context, overall, you find that from as young as we can think, persons are exposed to sexual content, and this is how the pornography and masturbation and all of these conversations. But then, it's always debated, why is sex supposed to be just for marriage, and again, persons will be like, oh, it's just a Christian thing. But I mean, are there any, I would say, advantages, or not necessarily advantages, but why do you think that God is saying that it should just be marriage versus just have sex with anybody?
I think it goes back again to the manufacturer making a product. If the manufacturer makes a car to drive, you don't try to fly it because that's not using the thing within its proper context. The manufacturer has the final say about the product, and we should not tamper with another person's product. Yes. So to tamper with sex, which is intended for a marital union, to say it should be for anybody as long as you have hormones kicking and you feel the desire. You can do anything you feel a desire to do, but it does not make it right. It does not make it right. And because sex will open up so many avenues for hurts and what we call stress and disappointments, there's no condom that can protect your mind from unwanted memories. Wow. So you should think about that. Sex is meant to join two people, a man and a woman together, join you spiritually and physically together. When you join, that means the word join, the word cleave means to be glued to be adhered to. You need to know that whoever you have sex with outside of that context of that one man, one woman environment, whoever you have sex with, a piece of you goes. Because if you literally tape two pieces of paper together, when you're ready to pull them apart,
There's like a
Yeah,
residue.
there's residue.
Yeah.
So there are residues of persons who are all across the world based on their sexual privileges and preferences that they have had. And they don't understand that when somebody come and sit in my church and say, I feel so empty, I feel so lost. You must feel empty because pieces of you are everywhere. You don't even know where they are.
Oh,
So
oh.
it has the potential to do that to you. You understand? Especially for us women. We can never forget a person that we have had sex with, whether it was trauma or otherwise, whether it was forced or freely given. We do not have the ability to forget. Men may, because their brain, their minds, their emotional brain is compartmentalized, right? It's not because they're bad and turn bad, but because their brain is not meant to hold information like that, right? So they are compartmentalized in their brain. If you read my book, Sex Scripture, I put two brains in there, the brain of the male, the brain of the female. You get to see how the brain is situated. The female, because our emotions are so attached, we can never forget. We must be careful, man.
Yes.
You understand? It is meant for a one man, one woman in the context of marriage relationship. If sex is meant to glorify God and you're having it outside of marriage, how is God glorified? When you're basically an idolic. When you're basically, God can't come in the room. God cannot enter into the room when two unmarried persons are having sex. No. But when two married persons are having sex, God can enter the room and be glorified in the expressions.
I want to ask though, what can us as believers or the church do in terms of, just kind of pushing the God's agenda for sex and marriage and family that we're not doing right now? Like, are there anything that we can do?
I think so. My people, again, suffer because of lack of knowledge. We need to teach. All right. So as a church, we have focus. Remember, I pastored for 22 years in the Church of God of Prophecy, right? I resigned in 2021 because I recognize that God has sensitized me that if we don't focus on sustaining the family with legislations being passed to redefine what the family ought to be, if we don't focus on sustaining the family and restoring the family, then pretty soon the church is going to be void of families. And so if it is that we don't teach, and so God pulled me apart to just maintain a structure where every time you come, it is really about something sustaining marriage and family so that you can understand it. So what the church can do is teach. The church is doing a great job in terms of salvation, grace, and faith, which are most of the things that we preach about or teach about, right? And those are all good stuff. I'm not saying that we're to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying in the Bible study curriculum, we should include sex, healthy sexuality, teach that. So not only married persons are getting, single persons are getting it, children are getting it age appropriately, because sexuality starts in schools as low as grade 1, good. So we need to teach it, and that is what we can do. And if you can't do it as a pastor or a church leader, call somebody like myself who can. It is simple.
Yes.
Everybody do have same gifting.
Yes. And I think that is probably what's also missing in the church, because I feel like most pastors and ministers believe that they're the end all and be all in their church, so nobody else should be invited to share. You said,
God give different gifts to everybody. We must utilize the gifts. You are good at what you do, that's why I utilize your services.
Yes.
The camera persons are good at what they do, that's why their services are utilized. Everybody has gift and it's supposed to come together as a composite whole to put
build
together
the body. Yes. So as we're about to take a break, of course, we're going to show you the book of the week right now. And I want you to go ahead and order the book of the week, because, of course, the books are supposed to be the edifying. So I'm enjoying this conversation. You see how I'm tuning about the sex? All right. So we'll see you back in a few minutes.
Welcome to the DayeLight Show.
All right, welcome back to the DayeLight Show, and we are having a riveting conversation. Is sex really a big deal? Like, what's this conversation about sex? So we are here with Reverend Carla Dunbar, and resident, international sex therapist, marriage therapist. Let me wait for her just start my marriage counseling. But we're not having a conversation right now on the episode. Let's continue the conversation. Here's where we want to go. Because like you said, the society has been teaching us about sex. Vibes Cartel, I tell people the truth is between Vibes Cartel and Idonia, they have made oral sex a big thing. When you think about Lady Saw that used to tell us that, if you do the right position, you'll keep the man, but yet still, that's not the truth. So the culture has gone ahead and just been educating us. I want you to tell us a little bit more about how we as believers can educate ourselves more on not just on the topic of sex, but also you mentioned marriage, you mentioned family and the importance. So tell us a little bit about that.
And I said that I want to just start back to where you started. That's where we have gone wrong. We have allowed the world to set our standards. The world should never set our standards. Sex was not given to the world. Sex was given to God's people. You understand? At the beginning of my book, Sexcription, the chapter is who created it, right? So sex is a God-sent thing, meaning a God invented. Who are the beneficiaries? Us.
Yes.
Right? But when we fail to do what we're supposed to do, then the world can always take it and run with it. That is why I do in Essential Cartel. The world of them run gone with it because we have sidestepped it. So we have basically pivoted it into their hands. And so they are giving it to us and we have no recourse but to take it because it is not being taught anywhere else. I am saying to us as a people, get back to the basics, get in the Word of God. What I talk about sex is what I get from the Word of God. I don't go to to outside secular places to get it. The Word of God is clear. It is there. It is quick and powerful. First of all, you talk about marriage. Hebrews 13:4 says marriage is honorable and the bed, which means the union, is undefiled. Marriage itself honors God. It doesn't honor us, right? We get a sense of honor from being in it, but marriage honors God as a union. He gave us marriage as a gift. We are supposed to take care of that gift so that when we are questioned about it by God, if we are, which I think we will be, we can be able to speak up as to how we sought to preserve it. God procured marriage for us, but we must preserve marriage. Right? And sex also is a part of that union. You can't think about marriage and not think about sex. Unless, as a marriage officer, I can say you're signing or doing a marriage called the articular mortis, which is one that you do on the deathbed. Where like the thief on the cross, you're not going to get a chance to do nothing else. So articular mortis is one where you're doing the person about to die, but they still want to marry. Right? That's the only place sex not come in a marriage. Sex and marriage are synonymous. Right? As a means of not just procreation. That procreation is good, but also as a means of sexual enjoyment and fulfillment for the couple. Yeah. And so we must learn about it, and we can go back to the basic of God's word. The Songs of Solomon is a very sensual book. First of all, the church must know that this is a literal translation. It's not an allegorical translation. So we normally read Songs of Solomon like, okay, it is Christ's relationship to the church. Yes, in an allegorical way, that Christ is always talking about his relationship to the church, but it is a practical, literal experience between the Shulamite man, the man and his Shulamite bride. And so there's a lot of sensuality and sexual play and innuendos and a lot of comments and stuff made in that book that it tells us a lot about sex. And from the beginning, we're hearing about sex. We were naked and not ashamed in Genesis 2:18 when we were created and put together. And nakedness is not about just sex. We were literally naked, but we're supposed to be naked in our emotions and everything, be true and open and vulnerable to our spouses in every way. What better way to do that than to be doing it sexually? Because sex unmasks you. Your real self come out in a sex, when you're having great sex, when you're doing it in the proper context. You are unveiled totally, right? And that is how your partner can see you. I generally say intimacy means intimacy, right? So I'm supposed to be so open and vulnerable to my partner that he sees every part of me, right? And that is a very intimate thing. So what we can do is to educate ourselves. The word of the Lord speaks about it. In the book of Malachi, the Bible talks about the covenant that the man and the woman makes together in marriage. I mean, it's just riddled with it throughout the Bible, yes. I think what the church has done is that we have sidestepped the parts of the Bible we don't understand.
Yes.
So we don't focus on the parts we don't understand. So, and then it's not, I'm not saying that we're bad for doing it, because when I never knew, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying if pastors don't know what to do, then refer to somebody else who knows how to do it. Yes. So that your church is edified. If you bring in resource persons in your church, to empower your church. You are the good pastor, you get the good look because you may not be able to do it because that's not your strength, but you are not afraid and you are not threatened by bringing somebody who knows how to handle the subject matter so that your congregation can be edified, and that's really how it is.
You know, something came to mind. So my pastor, Pastor Bolt, used to when it's
awesome
Pastor Bolt, when it's anniversary time, the couples will go up and they kiss so many times they are married. And persons would come to the church for the first time and they're like, why? You know, oh, you're kissing in front of the kids. And one of the things he would always say is, one, he wants the young people, especially, you know, the young people, to know that a man and a woman should be married, should celebrate marriage, and should have healthy kissing, you know, and intercourse.
And kissing is so intimate.
What come to mind though? How do you, like, I would say, try to protect your child from some of these sexual explicit things? Because once my daughter is 11, once she go on TikTok, she's hearing the song. She's, you know, is there any advice that you can share with us, especially parents and, you know, persons that oversee young ones in terms of sex? But also, I want you to think, how do we have conversation with like the younger teenagers? So that's Crystal at 11, but then I have girls that are 14, 15 that, you know, the body start act up. They start like the guy a little bit more. You feel something, feel uncomfortable. You know, how do we have those kind of conversations?
It should be a good conversation to have, and it shouldn't be a problem to have it. The reason why we are not, we're afraid to have it and it's uncomfortable is because we have not been socialized. So it's not anything that you do over time. You're comfortable, but because we not go to church, go hear it. I remember the first I heard a lady she was 72 at the time, so she had been married for 42 years, and in the church she has never heard the word sex in church. The first time she heard it was when I went there, and she cried because her husband was dead now, and she said because she never heard it, she never knew that sex was okay between her and her husband. So she do it because them feel like it and them do it, but she was always uncomfortable even after, so she would fast and pray after and ask for forgiveness of God for giving sex to her husband. So she was crying now because she couldn't go back and correct the wrong because her husband was now dead, right? But she said she was going home to tell a friend who lived beside her, would they share the same perspective. Both of them thought it was not okay to have sex with her husband. So she was passing it on. So I'm saying the church is too dunce where this is concerned. We must be able to talk about it. If we teach it, it will be okay to sit down with my 8-year-old granddaughter. She's preaching. She's praying. We talk to her about it. We talked about healthy sexuality, your body, how it is developing. She's just 8, but that's her sexuality. So we talked to her about her body is developing. We see it like
what's the difference though? Tell us. I don't want us to believe that people know what's the difference between sexual intercourse and sexuality.
Just your sexuality is who you are as a person, a male or a female. That's your sexuality. Your gender also that's gender. Sex is gender. Your sexuality is your whole sexual personality. It's a different way that your body the biology of it, right? That's your sexuality. And so that's why I'm saying we can talk about the biology of it so that the children can understand. You know, your body changes. You talk to them about, you know, how the difference between a male genital and a female genital. Because right now, I don't know if you saw something come out the other day where we have a particular group going into schools and saying they're trying to help, but they're saying it's okay to be whatever gender you want to be. And I'm saying, no, you teach them that males have these genitals, females have these genitals. Females are going to at some point in time have breasts. Right? Men are not supposed to grow breasts, right? The male organ, what it is. Teach them the right words. There's a lot of euphemism. I go into schools and I'm talking to fifth farmers who are using words like janga and some local foolishness. They don't say penis and the vagina because they're uncomfortable at 11th grade saying penis and vagina. Just like pastors and leaders in church are afraid to say the word sex, so they still they do that and such. And he knew her, King James, and he knew her. They're still at that level. They have not matriculated into another level. So if it is that we're comfortable talking to them age appropriately, at 14, at 15, same thing. You're going to talk to them now about their body changes. That's your sexuality. Your body is changing, right? You're developing. You're having hormonal changes. So you're talking about that. You're going to talk to them about intercourse, what it is, because you're the one supposed to educate them. Sexual intercourse is something that husbands and wives enjoy. Don't say this. When I marry people, Christian, I don't say, oh, I now present you man and wife. No. you are supposed to make sure that you are very explicit when you're talking, right? So you're talking to the children and you tell them about their gender, and you tell them about the development, and you talk to them about sexual intercourse, and you say sexual intercourse is something that's beautiful. A husband and a wife is supposed to enjoy sexual intercourse, not just everybody. We know that people are doing it, but it is not right. And so you build a conversation from there, and you talk to them about puberty, about growing into adolescence, about the fact that they will have feelings and desires, and that there are some areas that are sensitive to touch, that even when they are showering, children will realize these things, but they don't shower them feel funny. But if you start to talk to a little girl that when she's taking a shower and and she's washing her genitals, and she might feel a little sensation, right? That is called desire.
Wow.
You understand? So you start talking, but it's nothing to feel bad about. So these are the ways that you can talk to them about these things and educate them.
Oh, listen, I tell you, when she start talking, just like wow. But just in 30 seconds, I want you to just talk to some men / husbands that may be listening about sex. 30 seconds.
All right, husbands. I think if you are to maximize, and sex is your big thing. If you are to maximize your sexual potential, I mean, no, like we say, it's everything to a woman and a slice of bread, If you are to maximize your sexual potential for your wives, you have to first understand your wife. 1 Peter 3:7 says, live with your wife in an understanding way according to your knowledge of her. Get to know her. If you know her like Solomon know the Shunammite woman, she will open up and give you everything that you desire. But you have to know her to treat her right to get what you want.
And advice for the women.
Wives, 1 Peter 3:1 speaks to you. Conduct yourself in such a way that if your husbands are not won over by your many words, because we like to talk, they'll be won by your conduct. And you are also to allow your husband to feel affirmed and desired. You need to know what his needs are. If you know what his needs are and you act that out, rather than speaking, you can win your husband over. He doesn't react to you speaking. He is a figure of authority. And so you need to understand, you are the neck, he's the head. Understand your place of importance. The head cannot go anywhere without the neck. You are very important, created out of necessity.
Yes, but just as I'm about to wrap up, so she has a book called Subscription, right? So we'll put it on the featured books. No, I open Subscription, right? I'm gonna have to close it back. I remember say I get pregnant in church, so it's not like but I'm gonna close it back because we say, all right, we'll wait until somebody wipes me out, before we can enjoy. But tell us a little bit about Subscription and she has many other books on Amazon, so we leave the link. Our couples devotional.
That was published by you. Don't forget to say
that was published by DayeLight. Right. So Subscription, just take a few seconds. Tell us about Subscription.
Subscription is a manual that was downloaded into me by the Holy
Spirit.
I took literally 5 days to write that book. It was a download from God Himself. It's hot, it's erotic, it's sensational, it's filled with positions that you'll not find in the Kuma Sutra. It is important information about taking the husband to the vagina university so that he understands how to do us, and taking the ladies to the school of the penises so you can understand the differences and be able to enjoy the gift that your husband has. It's about understanding the female sexuality and understanding the male as well, right? So it's helping you both. It takes you even into old age, because there's a chapter on geriatric sex. There's a chapter on being clean for sexual cuisine. I heard you talking about who is talking about oral sex. The Bible can tell you how to do that much better, right? So I'm just saying it's a book that will help. It's a manual with pictures, and it's comical, but it's very intentionally erotic, but it is also biblically based and theologically balanced in the Word of God. Sex is meant for our enjoyment as husbands and wives. You should not be ignorant about it. Get a copy of Subscription. You'll see.
So I am encouraging you to get a copy of Subscription. And also, she does have Sweet Escape coming up in October. I was at Sweet Escape, which is her annual
and this year is 10
retreat.
Years.
So,
married people need to come in. This year we're having lingerie fashion show. We're not only having sensual coaching, but we are going to have Rush Royalty with salsa and stuff. It's our 10th anniversary, so it's going to be a really big bang on October this year. We have a payment plan, so you just need to call the office.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for just sharing with us. Again, remember the DayeLight Show is about shining light on everyday topics using biblical principles, and we have been educated about sex so far, and we're not afraid. We're not afraid to have these conversations. I want to thank you for tuning in to the DayeLight Show with yours truly, Crystal Day. It is a pleasure. And of course, tune in, ensure that you see the featured book, the book of the week. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week on another amazing episode here at the DayeLight Show. God bless you. Have a good week.